All right, so now we are going to introduce to you your guest speaker tonight, Marc Murray. Marc is the owner of the Marc Murray Life Coaching and Consulting. He has qualified to deliver timely, inspirational messages and workshops to a wide range of audiences. Because of his experience that he had in hospitality with Ritz-Carlton Hotel, in his 16 years contribution to education as a former teacher, head coach, and Safe Schools administrator, he received the prestigious 5-star award from the Ritz-Carlton in 1996. After a career change, he was later recognized by principals and superintendents in Palm Beach County as a key figure for his motivational assemblies and his ability to influence the lives of both students and faculty in some of the most challenging campuses in the district. He played collegiate football at Murray State University with for former Virginia Tech and College Football Hall of Fame coach Frank Beamer. His desire is to help others reach their potential with skillful coaching and sincere encouragement is what sets him apart from most. He's especially gifted in connecting with the millennial and the Z generation, and he is passionate about helping them discover how to pursue their growth with confident determination. He studied communications at Murray State University. He is the author of the Dream Playbook. It was written to help those who are serious about achieving their dreams to understand the significance of recognizing the right people and strategies needed to build a playbook for a promising future. So let's welcome Marc Murray. And I'm going to stop sharing, Marc, I know.
Yep.
Sorry.
Very good. No worries. And we'll come up here. How's that? Are we set to go?
Yep, we are set. It's all yours, Marc. Welcome.
Yeah, hold on.
I'll enjoy it.
I'm gonna have to move these out of the way first. I think I have your picture, and that's it. Well, I tell you what, I saw some of the faces, and I wish we could engage more physically. But as Kimberly said, we are on Zoom. I think everyone's kind of getting sort of used to that. I'm really excited. I want to thank all the mentors for being a part of the lives of these young people. Like I said, I'm a life coach. I also train athletes. I see a lot of kids from different backgrounds, and we do need mentors. We also need to make sure that we are being equipped as much as we possibly can to give them our best. So with this presentation, the Coach Mindset for Take Stock Mentors, after talking with Nancy, talking to Kimberly, we came up with some ideas, and you're going to see some very interesting things in this presentation. So it's put together to really help you personally, as well as tools that you will need to help the students that you're mentoring. And throughout this presentation, you're going to see 5 different segments of a panel discussion that I did with the students weeks ago. So I edited some of the comments, some of the things that are going on right now in our society. I had them comment on with some questions. So let's get started. When I talk about the mindset, we want to talk about emotional readiness and transformation. I do a lot of transformational coaching. I believe that being emotionally ready is very important. Now, for me, I had 2 parents when I grew up. Let me see. This is hold on. Wait, why is it not? It's not moving for some reason. Hold on. Is that frozen or something? Where am I? My screen. Here we go. I got it now. I think this is it. For some reason, my screen is not moving. It's not good. Hold on. It's working before. Okay. How's that? All right, here we go. All right, so I had 2 parents growing up. Both my parents were educators. You see my dad on the right. Both my parents are still living, and I'm thankful for that. But my dad was in the military. My mother used to take us out a lot to pick beans and peas, and I grew up in Belgrade. But I remember when I was in I think sixth, seventh grade, I came home once. I had this job washing dishes, and I came home and complained about how many dishes I had to wash. And my dad told me, he said, listen, if you want the money, you're going to work. You're going to be responsible, and you're going to do what's asked of you if you want to make an income. So at that moment, I could tell that he was getting me ready for real life. He was getting me prepared for what I was going to face. Now, I was a kid that grew up doing chores. I grew up doing a number of things around the house. I thought I was a very responsible kid. But when I got my own job, things changed. So I had to have a mindset shift there. Now, that mindset shift allowed me to eventually go to college. There's a lot of things in between that, but thinking about those simple fundamentals that my parents gave me, I had to be emotionally ready. Here you see a picture of Frank Beamer. He's a Hall of Fame coach. Like I said, played for him at Murray State. He was at Virginia Tech for 29 years. And Coach Beamer was overseeing a lot of young men. And I can tell even at that point, there were some that had more tools than others emotionally. There were some that weren't able to adjust to the college demands, playing Division I football, going to class, being responsible, being on time. So that was very important. So as a mentor, we need those tools to get all of our students emotionally ready as much as possible. Now, I know some of you here, like myself, like to cook. This is food that I made. I love to cook. We'll talk more about that. I grew up in the kitchen. And when I think about cooking, you think about getting your mind together. What is it that you're going to make? How are you going to prepare it? And I know for my wife, she gets very intense in the kitchen when it's time to cook. She doesn't cook a whole lot. I do most of the cooking. She's more of a baker. But I know when I cook, I have to be emotionally ready. I have to get everything together and make sure everything turns out well. So there are ingredients that we need in life, just like cooking. So we're going to talk about some terms really quickly. The first one, we just simply talk about emotion. Sometimes we forget about emotion. What does that mean? Okay, so it's deriving from circumstances, a mood, relationship with others, readiness. Here's another key term, being fully prepared for something, being willing or eager to do something. So we have to get our students and ourselves in a state of readiness as much as possible. The term transformation. When I think about transformation, I love to use the word reshaping or rebuilding. Now, we're going to have a lot of kids that come to us. Some we have to reshape, some we have to build because they don't have the foundation that we need. So we have to do our best in that category. And then lastly, to coach, to mobilize others. We're inspiring them, developing them, showing them how to be courageous and develop more fortitude along the way. Now, when you look at these terms, I'm thinking about the coach mindset. So I'm a life coach, and we're going to talk about some things about coaching. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that coaching, what it's not therapy, okay? Therapy, most of the time, it looks back at past hurts. And that is the realm of that. And it's not counseling. It's not consulting. It focuses on offering advice or external solutions. Now, that does not mean therapy is bad or counseling or being a counselor. We all do those things in some level, some shape or form. But what I want to challenge you tonight is to become more of a coach, more of a life coach, while you are working with your mentees. So what does that look like? A life coach, true life coaching, is asking powerful questions. All right, so you're asking these questions to help the individual gain their own clarity, help them find their own discovery. That gives them greater sustainability. So what happens is they get a chance to look at themselves and say, okay, what is it that I'm deciding that I'm going to do? What is the answer I'm giving to this situation? And you're looking at that person as someone who's healthy enough to move on in their current state. So the best example I can give is this. If I were to go into a company or business and they wanted some consulting, I may come in and give them some external solutions, things that came from me. But if it comes from the team, from that organization, things that they discover themselves is going to be more sustainable over time. So we want to get the kids best we can in a position where they can make their self-discovery. Now with that, again, there needs to be a higher level of emotional readiness for every student. Here's a picture of me at the Ritz-Carlton. This was actually back in 2005 or 6, circa 2005 or 6. I actually took a group of kids from Lake Worth High School to the Ritz-Carlton. I called the catering manager and we set up I think it was a 3 or 4 course dinner. We had them tour the hotel, had them meet the chef, and just to get them in that environment. And when I went back to the Ritz-Carlton, I did a lot of reflection and I thought about a number of things. And we think about emotional readiness. When I was at the Ritz-Carlton, just like an athlete, I had to learn how to fail. I had to learn how to do something better the next time. It was a 5-star hotel at the time. The Ritz-Carlton is no longer there. Most of you that drive down the beach, it's called the O now. The O Palm Beach is right next to in Manalapan. And then the next thing is I had to understand my strengths and weaknesses. This is being emotionally ready. And then knowing how to embrace both the positive and negative aspects of my personality. So we're constantly assessing ourselves, how we can improve, what are the positives, what are the negatives, learning how to respond to certain things. And then lastly, having those soft skills, and some of them seem contradictory. You have to have humility, but at the same time, you have to be confident when you're moving along in life. So emotional readiness is just being ready and understanding where you are. I'm going to get further into emotional intelligence later on, but I wanted you to really just grab a hold of thinking about, are your kids emotionally ready when you see them, when you know they have to go to college and things that they want to take on? And then as you're doing that, you have to ask yourself, am I emotionally ready to help this kid get better? So emotional readiness in action. Now I took this picture. This is a Porsche, as you can see, my wife's favorite car. I took this years and years ago. Now, when you look at the Porsche, it's a beautiful car. My wife's more of a sports car person. I'm more of a sedan person, but we know it's a beautiful car. But when I look at the Porsche and you look at the rims and you look at the tires are inflated. Now, if that Porsche, if it had deflated tires, it's not going to go very far. Those tires need to have pressure in them for the car to move. And the same thing is in life. We have to be able to handle pressure. So we want to teach our kids how to build important relationships, prepare themselves to be challenged and handling pressure. Now, that may look different for different students, but we have to understand, where are they not able to handle the pressure in life based on the feedback, based on the interaction that they give you. So there's 2 things I want you to keep in mind. I used to teach this to the kids when I was in the school district. I got this from Rick Pitino's book, Success is a Choice. And I also reference this in my book. And I think this is so important. The first one we have to help the kids understand is we all have positional friends. Okay, these are friends that may be good in math or in their class, in the club, and they may not be very close to us, but they may challenge us a little bit and help us understand certain things that we need to know. So they need to be in position in our lives. So we accept them into our circle at some degree. And then we have personal friends. Now, the personal friend we may share more information with. We have to teach the kids this. I used to teach the young ladies, listen, you can't share everything about your life with everyone. You only have so many personal friends, but they both are going to challenge you. They both are going to offer information and challenge where you stand if you know certain things, if you don't. And it comes about as pressure sometimes. So we have to teach kids to digest the information that comes from our positional friends as well as our personal friends. So thinking about emotional readiness, we're going to give you a quote with Daniel Goleman, most of you have heard about Daniel Goleman. He does a lot of studying and research on emotional intelligence. It's very important that we understand this, and we're going to get into the components after the next video I'm going to show you. So emotional intelligence, it is not the IQ, he says. It's the technical skills are irrelevant. They do matter, but research along with other recent studies clearly shows that emotional intelligence is the sine qua non of leadership. Without it, a person can have the best training in the world, have an endless supply of smart ideas, but still won't make a great leader. And I know you're going to encounter a lot of smart kids, and we'll say that, man, that kid's bright. They're smart. They're so intelligent. But we have to start understanding, do they have the emotional intelligence, the overall emotional intelligence to really be able to make wise decisions? So in this next slide, I'm going to show you some of the excerpts we had from our panel discussion. And we're going to try to fold them in the best way we can. And we're going to have some comments, questions, concerns that, or I should say reactions, that Kim's going to take from chat. Okay, so this next video here, I'm going to click it and make sure everyone can hear it. So I asked the question, how are you responding in this socially intense climate? So you're going to have Enzo's dilemma and his response, and you're going to hear from Brianna. Intense climate. How is that affecting you with all the things that you hear, either in the news or social media, your friends? What is your biggest challenge right now, you would say?
Like choosing a side, because right now there's a lot of division within like the social like structure, I would say.
Oh, sorry, I went back. I apologize. Intense climate. How is that affecting you with all the things that you hear, either in the news or social media, your friends? What is your biggest challenge right now, you would say?
Like choosing a side, because right now there's a lot of division within like the social like structure, I would say, of like, you know how you have your close friend group and then your outer friend group and then people you just know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in all of those groups right now, there's like a division between the people that are for this and against this and yada, 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 the people that believe conspiracy, the people that don't. And it's really hard to just be friends with someone without having to talk about politics.
Okay.
Because it's so involved in the pop culture that we have on. Like, I haven't really heard in songs talk about this, but it's very prominent in everyday, like on social media and stuff. So the most thing that would affect me is the division in between my friends. Okay. Because either you stay friendless because you don't want to choose a side, or you choose a side that you don't really agree with, but it's better than the other side, and then you lose some friends.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else?
May I?
Sure, Brianna, for sure.
Okay. With this whole Black Lives Matter situation, it took me so off guard because I lived with my mother, and with that, she's sheltered me so much from all the things that have happened in this world regarding that. So that was like a complete and total wake-up call for me. And with that, I had to make an extra effort to protect my own mental health and protect how I see other people, and opening my eyes to certain situations I may have become a victim of it, and trying my best to see, well, should that affect the way that I see this person because they're so close to me? Or those questions just keep on coming up, and trying to talk to my parents about it, it's really hit home for me. It's really been a hard conversation to have because it's not something that I was really 100% aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing everything in the media, I tried my best to stay away from it. My parents don't even really like it, but now it's hard to not be into it. And so hearing the media and hearing the stereotypes that are being portrayed, I have to keep myself in a whole bunch of prayer and just know that, you know, don't believe everything that other people say, especially that is negative, because we're always going to try to protect particular group, but it's best to just see it as that one person, that one individual. So
Yes.
for me, it's been trying to figure out, how to interact with other people now that this is going on, and trying not to gain anxiety from walking in the streets, because I was in Georgia for most summer, and they were burning down buildings close by and having protests, and it was just a scary experience. But trying to overcome the, should I be afraid of this cop, when most of the cops that I know are my best friends and I live next to them. So it's just been really hard for me, but that's just basically it. Just trying to maintain my mental health.
Very good. So it sounds like you are working hard to keep the balance and to treat people individually based on how they are in life, as opposed to grouping everyone in one category.
Correct.
Okay, no, that's very good. I love that approach. I think that's what year are you in?
Me, I just freshman, so I'm gonna be I'm gonna be a sophomore, so I'm gonna be in the 10th year.
Wow, girl, you are expounding like a college student, so I love it. Keep it going.
All right. So comments, questions, reactions. If you guys want to type in a question or remark.
I don't have any questions
Okay.
in the chat, but bring them on, mentors.
What would be the best response in a situation like this? Okay, they're going pretty fast. Oh gosh. You see the questions? Okay. So here's my take with this. I'll say it needs now when I showed that, I want you to think about everything that we talked about at this point, the positional friends, the personal friends, what Enzo talked about. If that really disturbs someone, would you function like a therapist, a counselor, or a coach? I would ask the kids, if they brought this up and it was really bothering them, like Enzo, it's a coach. Well, I had this one friend, and he really get me upset. I would ask him a question, as opposed to telling him what to do. Okay, or they may respond. When that kid said this, it reminded me of something when I was young, happened to my family that really hurt me. So now you're kind of have a decision. Do you go back like a therapist and talk about their hurts, or do you have to move forward by asking them a question on how they're going to remedy it? Okay. So she said, can you touch a little bit more on the differentiation between coach versus counselor therapist? How to focus your conversations toward the coach role? Very good question, Edwin. I love the question. So here's the thing. I know when I'm working with a client, I have a 16-year-old kid. I'm working with, have another 26-year-old, a 20-year-old. What has to happen is you may know the answer as a counselor based on your experience, and you may even identify based on the responses that there's some hurts that they're dealing with. We know that's gonna come out. So you may have to function as a mentor, more like a counselor at times, or a therapist. You want to try to stay away from it as much as possible, depending on where the student is. So here's the thing that you want to process. Best you can, you want to think about, okay, I think this kid's healthy enough to where I can help them move forward, as opposed to giving them the answer as a counselor, telling them exactly what they should do. If you think about a guidance counselor, if they're looking at the students, this is just an example, they're looking at a student's grades and they say, well, you need to take this class. They're just going to tell them what they need to do to graduate. Or they may have a home situation or a friend situation. Then they may have an option to kind of see where they are, but a counselor in the school may still tell them, listen, you shouldn't hang out with that person, all right? Now, a therapist may recognize someone may had some really bad abusive things that happened in the home when they were young, and every now and then that conversation comes up, okay? So you may be a sounding board. A life coach could be a sounding board, but what you want to try to do is find the healthy part of that student to help them move forward as a coach. That's what a coach does. So you'll ask them questions, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Based on what you mentioned, your previous comments were enlightening and made the conversation they were mentioning pertinent. inquiry into which you guide the students to work with their ideas, and you simply listen and mentor or guide. Correct. Yes. Yeah, so a lot of it, that's from Sonia Soto. Yeah. So you are going to be a sounding board. You want to try to be more of a sounding board, and then come in with a question to help them understand what they're going to do next to get through that challenging situation. All right. Very good. I love the input here. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. What we're going to talk about next is the 5 components of emotional intelligence. So we talked about a little bit about being emotionally ready. All right. So that's just being prepared. I talked about the example with me coming home complaining about washing dishes. And my dad gave me the 1-2 punch. Hey, if you want the money, you got to be ready to do this. So I understood from then on out, I had to be emotionally ready. If I had a boss, if they're going to tell me X, Y, Z, if I want this out of life, this has to happen. I was only in 6th grade at the time. But over time, I played football in middle school, then high school. I understood authority. I understood their voice. I had to respond accordingly. That was being emotionally ready. Now, after that, and these are things that, these are things that, I'm sure why it does that. All right, so these are areas now, obviously, I didn't understand that terminology. I'm going to learn this later in life. So over time, studying these 5 components, this is a chart that Daniel Goleman uses. Okay, let me move, see if I can move out of the way. All right, so here are the 5 components: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Okay, so we have a definition for each one, and we have a hallmark. So what I try to do right now, as you read over these, every client I work with, I try to help them understand their self-awareness, their self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Listen, it seems like a lot, but if you start weaving certain ones in based on the situation, they'll start understanding, you know what? I need to be more self-aware, understanding my moods, okay? A hallmark of that is being self-confident, okay? Being able to laugh at yourself as another one. Then you may have them understand, I need to use more self-regulation. I'm working with someone right now, and I said, Coach, this actually works. I said, it does. The ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods, how they affect other people. Think before acting, not attacking someone verbally, especially with the teachers. Let's just sort it out first and see the teacher's point of view. Being trustworthy, open to change is a hallmark of it. Motivation, a passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status. I think this is an absolute big one right now with millennials, Generation Z. They see a lot on TV. They see a lot of image. So, but I also understand that millennials, they do like participating in a lot of causes. They like doing things in groups. So they have that element, but you want to keep them going in that direction to pursue things, pursue goals with energy and persistence. Strong drive is another part. Empathy, the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people, putting yourself in their position. So you may want to be able to say, did you use empathy when that teacher, do you understand that class was out of control, or you didn't turn your work in on time, why they responded? That's just an example. Expertise in building and retaining talent. A lot of these, they have to understand that they're going into the business world, that they're going to be working with other people. So they're interchangeable. And the last one, social skills, okay? The ability to find common ground and build rapport, being persuasive, expertise in building and leading teams. I think our kids now need to learn how to build teams in this current state where they are. So, who needs transformation? This is a picture I took at FAU. I trained a couple of kids on the FAU soccer team. They were playing North Carolina today, and I just used this picture. Who, thinking in terms of the owl, having the wisdom, we all need transformation. You need transformation. I constantly need transformation. I need the wisdom on what that looks like to help someone else. So one of the ways I like to break this down and ask the question, are we emotionally ready to be guided? And then help transform others. Constantly ask yourself the question. Doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are, continue to become more emotionally ready for things that are happening in our society, in our world, and have the ability to transform other people. So on the left here, I took this picture on a Disney cruise. This is Walt Disney. And on the right is his brother, Roy. Now, everyone knows about Walt Disney. Few people know about his brother, Roy. I'm going to get in that in a moment. But Walt Disney and Roy, they had a pretty good relationship. And really, when you research the Walt Disney empire, it was Roy who functioned as Walt's mentor or as his coach. I would have to say some of the things I read, he functioned as his therapist and his counselor as well. Walt Disney was a very talented man, but without Roy, it wasn't going to happen. We'll go through that in a moment. But here's a quote I used from my book. The coach relationship is there to keep you accountable, to follow through with the plan you decided to commit to, and improve your current status. Now, Walt Disney, when he was creating the movie Snow White, I think the budget was $250,000. It went to $1.5 million. So Roy was the person who oversaw the money, the building projects. Even here in Florida, Roy came down and moved in. He was the one who would train the staff. He was the one who would train the staff at the Polynesian and the Contemporary. He was behind the scenes, do a lot of that. Walt Disney was not as talented as people think as far as illustration. So he brought in a lot of illustrators to help get the work done. But it was Roy who was behind the scenes to help piece everything together. So Walt Disney had a level of self-awareness and self-regulation, but he was very high in motivation. He just had great intrinsic motivation. He knew what he wanted. Even at 16 years old, Walt Disney left the United States and went to World War I because he wanted to get away from home. He grew up in a very poor environment in Missouri. I believe they sold their farm. They had to sell their mules and their horses. And so he had a lot of emotional damage when he was a kid. But he was very motivated. So Roy comes along and sees Walt's dream. He was the one to endorse Walt's dream. So it was Roy who had higher levels of self-awareness, self-regulations, empathy, social skills. He had that ability. And I think as much as possible, if we can teach our kids at a younger age to understand what this looks like in real time. What does it look like when they're in the classroom? What does it look like when they're around their friends or if they have to go to work? And start weaving in some of these terms and see if they can apply. So anyway, the difference is Rodney, Brianna took more of the stand of Black Lives Matter and how it affected her and how she viewed injustices towards the Black community, the Black culture. And she yielded more towards that part of it, okay? Rodney, on the other hand, he looked at it as it's not the solution. Now they're both Black kids. He also pointed out that there were other elements that Black Lives Matter were taking advantage of that he didn't feel that they was really true to what their cause was stated as being, okay? And when I heard both of them, one of the things that I thought about immediately was, I think they both exhibited emotional intelligence. I believe that Brianna explained herself very well. I don't think she came off as someone who was not self-aware. She didn't come off as someone who could not be self-regulatory with her emotions. And but Rodney was able to look at the empathetic part for everyone else and then weave in some more social skills with it. So that was the big difference. Okay, just to sum that up. You guys have any questions on that whole topic? Anything I just shared?
Mark, there's a few questions I do want to touch on, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so we had a question. What would be the right response if we completely disagree with our mentee in regards to what you've talked about? If they disagree, how do our mentors guide or understand?
Yes, in particularly with this Black Lives Matter issue. Is that what you're referring to, or just
Well,
anything?
the question came before this part of the presentation.
What you just said.
Okay. Um,
So what would be the right response?
Yeah.
If there's anything that,
if you don't agree with it, here's the thing. As a coach, the goal is to help them find their own discovery. That's the goal. So you have to remove yourself from the situation and ask them questions. Now, I will have to say, if there's something that you think is detrimental, they're making a decision or they're going down a path, I'm not saying to not say what you think, but here's the thing, you want to look for sustainability. Now, in my experience, if you're engaged with the kid, also, it depends how long you've known them. It depends on the relationship that you built with that student. It's a matter of trust. If I work with a client, you have to look at it. How much does this kid trust me before I speak into their lives? Are they giving me the right to speak into their lives? I mean, I have 2 kids, and I have to monitor, is my son or daughter, are they giving me the right? Do they really want to hear what I have to say? So the best thing to do initially is to be a sounding board. When you're a sounding board, you're going to demonstrate more care. Okay, so I'll just put this slide up. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to exhibit a level of care when you are in that situation, even though you know that the decision they're making could not be best for them on the long run. That's not to say that you may not give some guidance as a counselor. That's not to say that you shouldn't. What I'm saying is, if you're going to use components as a coach, you want to ask as many questions as you can and help them understand what steps they're going to take. And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. So,
I have
go ahead.
I have another question.
Sure.
Not all how can we encourage students to recognize their personal responsibility for growth and maturity?
Yeah, again, when you have, let's just say someone is a 9th grader and they're dating a senior, and you see this person's taking them off course, or they're too emotionally involved. So I may want to ask the question, you have a boyfriend, girl, you may see that, you may ask them, how's that working out? If they give you any signs of stress in that relationship, take their response and shape it into a question. You can take any of the concerns that students have and shape it into a question, and then have them answer you, and then you ask another question. So based on their response, you want to get them to a place, and I'm going to go over the scientific coaching model in a moment, but you want to get them to a place to where they have to make a determination how they're going to walk this out. And then you keep them accountable once that plan comes together.
And then one more question, which might lead into the next segment here. It's difficult not to be a counselor with students that are emotionally bound to certain situations and aren't able to see past the situation. In this light, how would you respect the coach's role, but encourage them to move forward?
Agreed. It is tough. And again, remember, between a therapist, a counselor, or a consultant, say counselor, and a life coach, the goal for you as a mentor is to get the student to understand that you're gonna yield to the coach's side as much as possible. That does not mean that you can't shift back into a counseling mode, because we know some kids get to the place to where they could become distraught in a certain situation. They need to hear a green light or a red light or yellow light, a caution for decisions they're going to make. I think the goal is to bring them to the place to where they know when they meet with you, you're going to challenge them to sort out for clarity. So let's just think about this. Typically, if a kid is let's say if they're in a broken home, if they have one parent and the parent's off working a lot and they're home a lot, or they have other siblings they have to take care of, they are already in a situation where they have to critically think and make decisions. So all it really is shifting towards another part of their life and bringing them to a place to where they're going to mature by answering the questions. And once they answer a question that you think is a good plan, you just say, you know what, that sounds good. Why don't you try that? And we'll see what happens. If it doesn't, you go back around. And they'll come back and say, well, that didn't work, or it almost worked. I think I'm close. And you ask them another question. What do you think you want to try this time? If your brother does this, or if your boyfriend does that, or if a teacher does this or that. So you get very skilled with asking questions when those concerns happen. Okay. All right, so we're going to try this again. Oh, I don't know why. Oh, it's so good. So I asked the question, can you find value in someone regardless of their race? And here's Enzo's response. Age of my life, as long as I've been living, I'm 54 years old. So whether you're Black, Latino, Jewish, whatever,
like
you know,
helping.
are you able to just take in their value, whether it's a mentor, a teacher, a janitor, a cafeteria worker, doesn't matter. Are you able to really assess the value that they bring into your life to contribute to your life without looking at their race?
Totally.
Okay.
For me, I'm Mexican Peruvian,
Right.
so Latinos, they're all.
You're Mexican Peruvian. Are you more on the I don't know, tostada side or the ceviche side?
I'm both. They're both.
I had to throw that in there. But,
Dinner at my house is so good.
oh man, I have to come over sometime, man. We got to get to know you.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
For Latinos, everything is like a mixing pot. So like you could be Salvadorian, but you look like Guatemalan or something like that. So it comes to a point where you can't be looking, oh, are you Honduran? Are you Mexican? Are you Peruvian? It comes to a point where it's just like, okay, we all have the same goals or something like that. So let's just help one another. So coming from that culture, I've done the same thing with other people. Like I don't look at you if you're Black, if you're white, if you're yellow. It doesn't matter for me. What matters for me is your morals, how you treat other people, and how you are able to deal with unique situations.
Got it. All right, so great response there from Enzo. One of the things that I'm going to go back on with the Black Lives Matter, I'm not sure if Rodney mentioned in that or a different segment, but you know, he says, I don't look at myself as being Black. I want to look at myself as being a person. So the good news about this piece here for Enzo, you know, you can say with other kids, if they're having struggles in this area, you may not use his name. You may say, look, there are students that are processing information right, and they're not just looking at race. They do value others. They don't see themselves the way society says, well, I'm Black, I have to function this way. I can think for myself. So I think that's very key. And the thing is, as a coach, you want to be able to use those tools that kids are saying when you're working with other young people. So when I think about Enzo's response, I think about this coach here. This is Vivian Stringer. And I put this picture up. I'm going to show some of the things that she's accomplished. You know, Vivian Stringer is a Division I basketball coach. Okay. So here's some of the things that she's accomplished. All right. She was the first coach to lead 3 different programs to the Final Four. She was the highest paid women's coach in the country in 1995 at Rutgers University. Okay. She currently has a salary of $3.4 million at age 72 years old. She's still going at it. She's also in the Naismith College Coach of the Year. She was a college coach of the year. She's in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. She was inducted alongside Michael Jordan. Now, the reason I bring this up, because we know what's going on in society. We know kids are going to bring a lot of different things about being a victim or things that are not good for me. I think Brianna talked more about that. I tend to have kids think about what is in your hands now. What can you do right now to make things better? Because we're going to get a lot of different answers. We don't want to write off everything as an excuse. We do know there's issues and things that happen, but I use her as an example because I'm looking at her age. Rutgers, I even looked it up. They are honoring her at age 72. They respect who she is. But the greatest thing is Vivian Stringer did not get where she is today by yielding to just one race of people or one gender. She used a surplus of people to help her accomplish her goals. And I think that's what the kids have to remember, that when we are in life or we're moving about in life, regardless of how old you are, you're going to need other people. So we want to help them understand who's that person that can help you get to the next place, and are you going to value them beyond what they look like if you get that response? Are you going to value them if they're younger or older? It doesn't matter. So we have to be a bridge for our students. And if it's not a bridge, we have to be a lighthouse. And that's going to look differently for different kids. So we have to understand, what is our mood? There's something called mood contagion. It really is something that you have to think about when you're around young people. I think about it when I'm coaching. If I have a client that I'm going to sit down with, or if I'm coaching an athlete. Now, I show you this picture. This happened a couple years ago. This is at the Breakers Hotel. To my right is Susanna, and her husband. To my wife's right is her husband, Chet. Now, I met Susie when she was in 6th or 7th grade. I was her PE teacher at a private school. Years later, I started a tennis team. And Susie was a senior at the time. She was a junior, and then we played another season. We had to become eligible. So her senior year, she actually were ready to play and go into district play. Now, at the time, I was not a great tennis coach. My son was in 4th grade, and Susie was being trained by Andy Roddick's coach. If you remember Andy Roddick, the American tennis player who won the US Open. But we went to districts, and Susie ended up winning districts, and we went to states. Susie represented our school in the state tournament. Now, Susie was with me and my son. We went to Tallahassee to play at Florida State University. Sorry, Nancy, it was not at Florida. It was at Florida State University, the Seminoles. But she ended up going to the finals of the individual state tournament. Now, I want to preface this by letting everyone know, at that time, Susie had turned down every school in the country. She says, "Coach, my dad's not going to let me leave home." He was very strict, and he was a good dad, and he did a lot for his kids, but he was really very strict with Susie and her brother. And she goes, "I'm not going to go anywhere." She turned down Big Ten schools, SEC schools. They all knew about Susie, but they wouldn't recruit her. So we go into the championship. She wins the individual state title. And then she went to play on for the overall, and she lost, I think, in a 2 or 3 set match. I think it was a 2-set match. And she played great. But before her finals, the individual finals match, she was on the phone with her dad. She goes, "Dad, Coach Murray has the plan. He knows what to do. He knows what he's doing." And I'm like, "Oh man, this is great," because I wasn't that great, but I was looking at tennis, and I understood a lot of it at the time. I didn't know as much as I know now, but she was trusting me. So my mood and how I carried myself around Susie, I built that trust with her. And we were leaving the stadium. Well, I was about to leave and go get the car. We were packing up, and the Florida State coach came to me, he was assistant coach. He handed me his card. He said, "Coach, I understand she's turned down everyone." He said, "But here's my card just in case." So on the way back home, I said, "Susie, what's going on?" So we had a talk. I said, "Look, let me talk to your dad." She goes, "Good luck. It's not going to happen." Make a long story short, I got a conversation with his dad. He goes, "Coach, I trust you. I'll listen to what you have to say." I said, "Are you at least willing to meet with the Florida State coach?" And he said, "Yes." I called her up. The next day she was on a plane to come visit Susie. They have dinner. 2 days later, she's signing a scholarship, and she ends up going to Florida State University. and having a good career. She transferred to South Carolina and played for the Gamecocks and went into the Final Four of doubles. And I think about this presentation, and I think about emotional intelligence, being emotional ready, and mood contagion, all those elements. I was like a bridge for Susie. I was a lighthouse for her at that moment. And we are still in great relationship to this day. Obviously, she invited me, out of all of her teachers and her coaches, she invited me to a wedding. And I just thought that was great. So we want to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position where our mood is right, because we never know what kind of bridge we're being for that individual. We never know we're being a lighthouse for them and what we can do to interact to help them get to the next place. In the middle here, you see Jaden Matthews. She played at Dwyer High School. She was on a national team, the Jamaican national team, and she has some similar stories that we worked on together. But here's the thing, it says relating to others on the basis of their personality type. Rather than through your own filter, encourages personal transformation and yields creative solutions. So what we have to do is make sure that we're understanding their personality. We understand where they're coming from. We have to understand what they're bringing to the table, not just through our own way of seeing life. And that's very important if we're going to have someone transform into the person that we want them to be. So comments, questions, reactions on that. Okay.
I have a comment that Enzo has a perfect understanding of the Hispanic culture.
Okay.
Um,
I'm going to get there with him.
I have a
Yeah.
question, Kimberly, Carol.
Yes.
I have a question. Do you want me to ask it or type it?
well,
I'll
I
just ask
prefer
it.
you to chat if you
Yeah.
could.
Okay, I'll chat.
Yeah, but go
okay.
ahead.
Matt, how do we help them? I used to teach some of the different personalities. You know, there's all those different tests that you can do and different seminars they have on working with people that are different than you. How do you help a young person, though, understand how to deal with a personality that may be very difficult or different from, well, and, you know, different from them, but also perhaps even difficult? Is there some guidance or something we could read or study or?
Yeah. You know, you mean if it's an authority figure is what you're referring to? If they are struggling?
Well, I just mean they're going to go out there. There's, you know, old quote that it's not the technical aspects of our job, it's communicating with other people that is the difficulty in most jobs. And of course, we have so much technology now that we're kind of losing that ability to communicate.
Yes.
But I was talking about personalities in general, different types of personalities,
Okay,
how
got
might
it,
they
got it.
understand different personalities and
Got it.
work with those.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's two things that come to mind. Very good question. Two things that come to mind. First one is, you know, we look at the emotional intelligence chart. Again, depending on how they're responding to that person, I love to use empathy and then putting themselves in the other person's shoes, even if it's a conflict or something that they don't like what the other person does. And the other thing I love to use is asking the student, what is it they want to become? What is it they see themselves doing? And then try to get them to understand they're going to have to transition into working with people in greater levels so they can start now. So what you try to do is say, listen, we know that that person may function a certain way, but then you want to get them intrinsically to see the things that they can control for themselves. So intrinsic motivation happens in so many different realms. It happens on the sports field. It happens in the classroom. The goal is to get them to kind of revisit themselves. So for me, if my kids came home, if they had an issue with school, the first thing I'm going to ask is, where were they? You know, what is it that they could have done better? Not that you're ignoring the other person, but you have to start there. And if they can see themselves long-term in their careers, for me, sports was my connection. So I understood I had to check myself first. I had to make sure I was emotionally right before I showed up on the practice field, knowing that I could get yelled at, knowing things could not happen the right way. But I wanted to be under the lights Friday night, so I made sure that I checked my intrinsic nature first. Does that answer your question? Very good. Okay. I don't see.
Thank you.
Sure. I don't know why my mouse is having a weird time with this. Looking up here. So, all right. Any other questions, Kimberly?
No, I don't see
Okay.
any unless I missed one.
Okay.
But let me
All
look.
right, so we have the next one we're going to have is I'm showing two different videos. And I love this. We have two parts where they're commenting on their mentors. And we're going to have some feedback after that. This is the first one.
I think
Anyone
my
else?
mentor. Oh yeah,
ahead.
I think my mentor would be really disappointed if I didn't mention him. So I owe it to him. He is my history teacher, and I didn't have a mentor to begin with, and I asked him if he would step up and sign up for the program,
Wow.
and he did. And he did. He became my mentor, and by default, he had helped another kid who he likes, but I don't like that he likes him. And he has been really helpful. I can see that he wants me to do great things, and he's helped me a lot, even outside of school, because living in a small town, he grew up in the same place. Well, not really. He grew up in Pahokee, but he went to the same school as I did. So, and he's gone through the same programs that I have. So he really knows what to tell me, what advice to give me. And it really helps that he's my teacher, because sometimes in class he'll see me struggling with a certain topic or struggling just in general. So whenever it comes to our meetings, we always have something to talk about. And he's been great overall. I think that the fact that we have a lot in common, well, not really. As Enzo said, we don't have a lot of things that we agree on. And I think that despite that, the fact that he is my teacher and that we've grown up in the same place, it's helpful.
And you obviously recognize some values in him to ask him to be your mentor.
Mm-hmm. He's quite possibly the best teacher that I've had at Pahokee.
Okay, I hope the other teachers don't hear that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll go.
sure.
Me and my mentor, I wouldn't say that we have too much in common, but I can only think of one thing off the top of my head. Is that she's been a teacher for a long time, and she has a job that deals with children, and I also want to have a job similar to that. I want to be a psychologist, but a child therapist as well, and deal with kids. So I think we have that in common. Also, I think what's important with being a mentor is being able to give criticism where it is due. And if I were to surround myself with yes men all my life, I don't think I would be able to grow from that at all. But not to say that I don't think encouragement is vital in being a mentor. It is, definitely is. But both encouragement and criticism, and telling someone that what they're doing isn't necessarily the best way to go about it, but would help me be able to grow really far. So that's what I think.
Very good. I love that. Take note of that. Here's number 2.
Don't be afraid to go again, Brianna. You're not going too many times.
I love my mentor personally. He was actually my teacher, my computer fundamental teacher. And so when I already had him and he volunteered to be my mentor, because I didn't have one at the time, I would love to have you as a mentor. And what was so great about him was that he really wanted to help me in everything. And he was really concerned about me, and he was willing to give me extra time to work on certain things because he understood my personal situation. So it wasn't just a job for him, but for me, it was personally like learning from him, learning about his experiences, telling him my dreams and goals, and him giving advice because he's very experienced and he's opened his own businesses and he's failed in some businesses.
Okay.
I'm so grateful, not that he's failed, but at least that he's willing to teach me where he's failed in and what he failed in, I should say, so I can be successful. And he's really working hard with me with that, not a lot, trying to encourage me and saying that don't let anybody disquiet your dream, but you have to understand there are hurdles in life, but there are ways to get over them.
So let me ask you an even deeper question. What race is your mentor?
Okay, so he's Italian,
Okay.
but his
She's on mute. She's on mute. Go again.
almost called he's Italian, but has some people that are from Africa on his side too.
Okay. No, I just had to ask it because when you described him, it was like, man, you guys like, I thought he was Jamaican for a minute. No, but I love the way you explained that because I can see how you're like extracting all this information and you're like, okay, this person has what I need. I'm going to take everything I can possibly get. So I love that. That's awesome. Anyone else? We were asking about the value from that person that you bring with a mentor, what you expect from a mentor, how can they best help you, things of that nature.
Okay, so for me, before I had my mentor, I expected him to have similar ideologies to me, to be like into music, to be like about like more like it couldn't relate to me a lot. But the mentor that I got, he grew up in Pennsylvania and then he moved to Florida when he retired. So he's like a very contrasting background from me. And that contrasting background has helped me see things in a new light. Because at first, we did not click. Like, yeah, we would say hi, I'd be friendly, but we did not click. And then we found one thing, the stock market. And we like started relating over from the stock market. We started bonding. And then after that, we got into some deep topics that we both had different points of views. And for me, it was healthy to see his point of view because it was so different from mine. And it helped me understand when I encountered other people that had different points of views.
Okay. Which is great. That lines up with your previous answer, how you value people. So it sounds like you had to yield more to where he was.
Yeah.
As opposed to waiting for him to adjust to you.
Okay, we can ask some questions now. I'm going to pause it right here. If there's any questions or comments they want to make, I will have to say that the first two, those students were emotionally ready. They were ready to hear what the mentor had to say. I love what Madison said. So she said, I don't want just flattery. I want the truth. I think I don't want to be a yes person. I want to hear what you're thinking. In this form as a coach, you ask that tough question. If you see where it fits. And then the other ones, I think they both explained or expounded on the emotional intelligence. They talked about the different personalities and how the mentors were. So you can see these things come out and how they explain them. But if you have any questions or comments, it'd be great.
Yeah, I do not see any additional questions.
Okay. Any reflections from anyone else?
Well, they love the tips that are being offered.
Okay.
Let's see here.
That's fine.
There's one at the top. Let me see. Let me go back. There was one up here from Tammy Calmer. I don't think we addressed.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it. Where'd it go? Oh, well, that's not it. Tammy, are you still on?
I see it. I see it.
Tammy, what was the question that I missed that you asked at the beginning of the first segment? Oh, I don't see it.
He actually answered it in like a little while later inside of one of his segments that he was actually talking about.
Okay.
Awesome.
Which was that, Tammy?
It was mainly in regards to communicating with the student. You know how you'll be talking to them and you'll be trying to encourage them and say certain things. And I was asking like about being being a coach rather than a counselor.
Yes.
Because I more so being a counselor a lot more than just a coach. because like I was telling Miss Kim, you have a lot of students that have other issues, you know, that they can't get past in order for them to move forward. So you have to kind of steer them in the right direction to move past that in order for them to begin to flourish, you know, academic, just in life in general. And it starts at home. So it's a little bit of a sticky situation when I was like hearing you say like be more of a coach than the counselor. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I wanted to hear your intake as far as balancing it out.
Yeah, they overlap and they're interchangeable as well. That is true.
Did we also answer Sonia's question on inquiry in which you guide the student to work with their idea and you simply listen and mentor or guide, correct? So
Yes, I thought I answered. I saw that. Ask the question again one more time.
Based on what you mentioned, your previous comments were enlightening and made the conversation they were mentioning pertinent.
Mm-hmm.
Inquiring in which you guide the student to work with their ideas and you simply listen and mentor or guide, correct?
Yes. So again, depends on where the student is. You definitely want to be a sounding board. So that's the listening part. If the student seems stuck about what they want to do, it's a perfect opportunity to ask a question, because what you'll find out, they're going in the right direction. But the payoff is if you can answer a question and they answer it and you know, okay, that's pretty accurate. That's a great answer. They're going to walk it out. The fact that they came up with the answer, even if you know, man, it's perfect, and you don't tell them, you may say, you know, that sounds like a good plan. But the fact that it came from them is going to be more sustainable. And then they're going to practice functioning that way. So they really begin to self-coach themselves and ask the question and be able to sort out. Again, when the relationship becomes very strong, they'll see times where you become more of a coach or a counselor without using that terminology. They're going to know that.
Okay. I'm interested in the student who said she likes to be challenged by her mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good idea to ask the students what their...
It was 7. She's leaving.
Somebody's on mute. Somebody be on mute.
Please mute.
Did I get out?
Is it a good... Somebody doesn't
No,
have
that's what we're mad.
Please
Mais
mute.
si pour lui venir au poil à cette
Always got to mute.
Maurice, please mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm so
okay.
sorry.
That's okay, dear. Is it a good idea to ask the students what their expectations are from their mentor, from their mentee?
Yes, I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to save that because I'm going to go to the next slide and go through that unless you have a different question.
So let's see. They want to know, can mentors get the 5 components of the emotional intelligence chart? They like that. So hopefully we can get that to you.
Yeah, that's
and appreciate the various examples of how to use questions to help the student come to their own conclusion. So go ahead further and.
Yeah, the chart, there's a couple of, I like the one that Daniel Goldman uses. There's other ones that you can use. So if you read over it, you got to become better skilled to know when it fits and bring it up. So what I do, I have a kid, he's 16 years old. I started from the top. He's having, a mom and dad lives in 2 different places, 2 different moms, a lot's going on. And, we stayed on self-awareness and self-regulation for a long time. And now he says, Coach, I can see when it comes up, I was good at, self-regulating my emotions. I didn't go off or whatever. So definitely works. And the other thing you mentioned, I think with the asking the questions, she said at the end.
She appreciated the various examples of how to ask questions or use questions.
Yeah.
Help the student come to their own conclusions.
Yeah. So what we call is the scientific coaching method. When I got my life coaching certification through Mitch Matthews, he came up with this. It's really similar to just a science experiment. This is Christian Langmo. He played tennis at the University of Miami. He and my son competed together. My son played at Greensboro. I use him as an example. But my own son has requested, he still requests every now and then, Dad, can I do a session? because he understands, okay, I'm going to ask him questions. I'm not going to tell him what to do, but he views me as someone that knows how to ask that right question and challenge him, okay? So it's in a form of a question. Now, we want them to discover and clarify, okay, what's the problem? All right, so a kid may come with you with 10 different things. You want to get them to work on one first, or you want to have them understand, okay, what is the one you want to work on in the next month or 2-3 months? Which one is that? Let's start with that one. So you ask them a simple question, how do you think you're going to attack that first, that problem? And you build from there, you build from there, you build from there. You're uncovering layers, or you're digging deeper. So you hypothesize, you find out how you're going to get there, okay? You remember why. Why is it important? Why is this important for that person or that student to accomplish that goal? Or why is it important that they remedy that situation? When they get off course, you want to remind them, what's their why? Why do you want to get this done? Let's go back to why this is important to you. I want to graduate, or I want to get a job, or I have to do this, I want to make the team. And they are going through discovering, they're clarifying, they want to hypothesize how to get this done. You want to get them to know, what's that why? And then fourth, you walk it out. Have them walk out their plan. Have them walk out what they said they were going to do, and have them come back to you. And finally, evaluate and adjust. What worked well, what didn't? When my son was done playing a match, I got in the habit, and instead of telling him what went wrong, as his dad, it's like we've had some disagreements, and there's been plenty of times where I've apologized and he's come back and said, okay, let's do this all over again. So I learned to ask him, what do you think went well in that match? What do you think you did well? Win or lose, didn't matter. What do you think went well? He would tell me. What do you think you need to work on? He would tell me. Then we go over again the next match. Okay, let's look at the problem. Let's look at the biggest thing you want to work on this next match. All right, just get a plan together. Okay, how you going to get there? Remember why. If I want to work on my forehand and my backhand in class, it could be I got to get better in math because I have a higher level math next year. I need to go to tutoring. I need to spend more time with either my teacher or one of my classmates because I want to get into a good school. Those are all of the whys. And then you give them the plan. How many times a week they may talk about? You may ask them, how many times a week you think you should go to tutoring to get better in the class? Let them tell you. How many, is there a student in your class you think can help you if the teacher's not available? Let them answer that question and say, instead of saying, hey, go find a kid in your class to ask you. You kind of just reframing the question. You're giving a directive, but you're asking the question so they can be more accountable in the long run. So when we think about coaching, we want to really understand, are they emotionally ready? Are they ready to be guided? Are they ready to be confronted with things they don't do necessarily well by the teachers, the coaches, the bosses, whomever? Okay, we want to get them up to speed with that. Then we want to implement the emotional intelligence that's necessary for them to make those decisions. So emotionally ready is just really a larger part, just one big piece of understanding things are going to come your way. You want to be steady. The emotional intelligence part, you're going to get better. They're going to get better at understanding the different components and how they fit in life. And then you want to add some good coaching to it. And with that, transformation comes, okay? So here's a good example I'll use for transformation. Now, this is a picture that I took, I would say circa 2007, 2008. It looks kind of weird, but what this is, these are Marines. They just finished their 13 weeks. They're about to do their motivational run. I was at Paris Island. They flew me up along with some other educators and administrators to go through a week of just observing the Marine Corps at Paris Island. So we show up here on the motivational run. It was very dark and their suits are lighting up. So I just took this picture. And after that, it went on, I think, like a 3-mile run throughout the streets in Paris Island while their parents were watching. It was an incredibly emotional time to watch this. So before that, I had a chance to sit
Pretty
down at
decent,
lunch
huh?
with one of the
Just make sure water's on all that.
with one of the soldiers that the new Marines that went over, and so I met this kid during lunch, and during the graduation, I said I want to find that kid that I met, and they were going through all the exercises and whatnot, and I couldn't find him. Once everyone graduated, I was looking for this kid. So when I went on to the area where they were doing the exercises, parents were just going all over the place. And like I said, I couldn't find him, but I ran into this young man. And before I took this picture, he was standing by himself. And the gentleman on the left is his dad. I believe the one on the right is his uncle. I found that out later on. But he was standing in mode, is just like a soldier. He didn't embrace his family. His dad froze and just stared at him, and everyone in his family just stared at him. I'm watching this happen. And I heard the mother say, "That's your son. Go stand next to your son. Stand next to your son." So I took this picture because the dad was like, okay, this guy's been transformed. He's just a different person. And the soldier, he was looking at his family and he was making a statement. I've been transformed. I'm not the same kid. I'm different. I'm a Marine. And we want to get our kids to transform similarly. So when they are in life or they're on campuses or at work, doesn't matter where they are, you want them to be able to change their environment. You want them to be able to use the tools that you've instilled in them, the tools that they've learned through failing and succeeding, to go transform and change their schools, at least while they're currently in high school and then into college or in life. So with that, I'm going to let you hear what Rodney had to say. I asked him a question about how will he contribute to his school if he saw something going wrong. What were some of the things that he would do to respond to accordingly?
About something, either COVID or Black Lives Matter or any protests or race relations, anything like that. How are you going to contribute to help things be better on campus if you see things not happening as they should? If things start to go the wrong direction on certain campuses, how can you contribute to making things better if you see something like that happening in the wrong way?
I'd like to go first. And I say that a very important thing to do is that's very important is your response. I'm a firm believer that teaching is an art, but I believe that the best way to teach somebody is not more so by speaking, but I would say by action. Like if something were to happen, or something were to be said, or something were to occur, I think based off how an individual reacts to it physically, they can either support the negative action, or they can either like you say, silence is agreement. You don't make movements on whatever it is, and you allow it to continue. Then you're showing that you agree with it. But if you speak up or you react a certain way, then you're showing firmly where you stand.
Okay.
I think it should be a thing where each and every one of us are not tossed to and fro. We are stable on what we believe, and we can let that that shine, let that represent that no matter who we're around, and always contribute to things with love, doing it the right way, not just based off like you mentioned about just emotions and just reacting that way, but just reacting in a way that's wisdom.
Very good.
Comments, questions, reactions. We're almost finished.
Any comments or questions, mentors? I don't see anything here in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I would like to say, Rodney brought up emotions. They had no idea the content I was going to put on this presentation. But when I heard him say, not just flaring up with our emotions, I just thought, okay, that's perfect. He really had a really good response, as well, the responses as well. So I would have to say the theme of where we're going, if you think about the students that you are mentoring, try to do your best and helping them with their emotions. Try to do your best with asking questions that can help them really implement some things that they're going to need long term. Okay. And I think the biggest thing, or the hardest thing I should say, is to begin to see the kids not just as a high school student, but begin to see them as they're going to go into adulthood. And the best way to do that is to be effective in your coaching style and asking questions, along with the components if therapy is needed, or counseling. So just want to finish this last picture here. I know this picture looks kind of strange. Like, what is that? Well, I took this picture in Bell Harbor down in Miami. It's a little small area. And we were driving through this neighborhood because my son, it was a very, really nice neighborhood, you can see. But my son, Gaston, who's a tennis player, at the time he was 11 or 12 years old. And he was asked to participate in a pro-am event where there were sports stars and whomever, and he was playing with them because he was very good. And they wanted some young juniors to be a part of this. So because of Gaston, my son, and his training and everything we did, they put us up for 3 days in the Turnberry. I thought it was awesome. And we were driving through this neighborhood to get to the club, and I said, I got to take a picture of this. This was years ago. And when I put this picture up now, I think about the work that went into the time I spent with my son. I mean, it was a lot of emotion with tennis. I played football in college. I've been a head basketball coach, head track coach. Tennis is the toughest thing I've ever done. And when I think about this presentation, what comes to mind is the emotion. There's so much to it. So we built a lot of things working with him. He ended up getting a scholarship. Gaston has hit with Coco Gauff. He's hit with Venus Williams. He's hit with Osaka. He's been in the Czech Republic with the Fed Cup team, with the women's Fed Cup team. And now he's an assistant coach at the Citadel. He works at a club up there. And it all had to do with how I was going to help shape him emotionally. But for his credit, he was the one that was willing to allow me to coach him. And I had a unique advantage because my son saw me coach other kids pretty tough when he was younger. So he just followed under my coach's voice. I had an advantage. It wasn't just dad. He understood me as coach. For you as mentors, you have to find out, how does my mentee view me? Do they really want to hear my coach's voice? Do they want to hear my parents' voice? Which voice do they want to hear? But with all the voices that are out there, you still want to ask powerful questions. And at the end of the day, when you've done the best you can, you know that you've done right. You know that you've put your heart and soul into helping this kid get to where they're supposed to be emotionally with what you had in your toolbox. You can kind of kick back and relax a little bit like this guy in his yard and think about the success that came with it. So I know I want to have a quick interview. That's it for the presentation on that end.
Yes.
So we
Now,
can stop share.
I'm not sure, is Francesco De Maria on the call? I did not see him log in, so I'm
No?
not sure what happened. And I don't know if he's there. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Okay, here he is.
oh, there you are. No, okay. Francesco?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, okay.
Francesco.
Okay, great. There's a different name under your picture.
Yeah, well, the Zoom is under my wife, Karina. So
Okay, all right. I'm like, I don't see him.
Am I
Okay.
here? Okay, we go right here. Okay.
All right, awesome. Go ahead, Mark.
No, so anyway, what did you think about Brianna's response?
Well, I mean, I have a good relationship with her. We kind of hit it off the first day.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I asked her, well, what's 5 things you want to know about me? And she
Okay.
was kind of shocked. She thought, well, aren't you supposed to be asking me those questions to me? And I was like, no, I want you to know what you want to know about me. You're interviewing me. I'm going to be your mentor. So you should be interviewing me to see if I qualify to your standards of being a mentor. So she asked me 5 questions, that young people usually ask. They didn't ask me what college I went to. She asked me what music I like, what's my favorite food,
Okay.
what's my background, what's my ethnicity. And she's correct. I'm Italian. My parents are from Italy, immigrants, but my great grandparents are from Libya.
Okay, got it.
So there's that African, North
Yes.
African flavor to it.
Got
I'm
it.
not Jamaican, but if you want to have a red stripe with me someday, we can go for that too.
I actually like to make homemade pasta, but we'll hold up on the red stripe. But here's the thing, with everything you heard, knowing that you're going to be working with Brianna again, right?
Right.
How would you approach her with some of the tools, some of the things that you saw in the presentation? Are there some things, elements that you include more so as she matures, based on the presentation, some angles that you would use now?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact of like self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the components of the emotional intelligence. I guess I already touched on some of the things, but now that you have like a format, that kind of can help me be able to bring it all together rather than kind of like hodgepodge it together as you kind of feel yourself through it as time goes on. So that can give me a better format on how to approach her.
Good.
And she's not the only one. I have two other mentors.
Yeah, you have two more, right?
Yeah. I have a senior, I have a junior, and she's my sophomore.
So she's a sophomore. So with Brianna, she's more of a candidate. Is she more of a candidate for therapy, counseling, or coaching?
I would say coaching.
Yeah.
Because she's already reaching that maturity level.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised. But
no, I wouldn't. We had 90 minutes. I would not, but go ahead.
Right. But I mean, as time progressed over time, when I first met her, she was really shy. She was really hard.
Oh, got it.
She was like a clam. You had to kind of open her up piece by piece. But as she got more comfortable with my style, also being her teacher, she saw that I was very open no matter where I was. Maybe a teacher, maybe a person, maybe whatever. So she had that connection better with me. Okay?
Got it.
And we always have a group meeting together. So the two other boys that I have, the junior and the senior and her, it's nice to have a group meeting together. So they kind of piggyback off each other.
I'm glad you shared that, because one of the things that I was going to share is that you can also do group coaching. It takes a little bit more preparation in the sense that with group coaching, you may say, listen, when I meet you guys next, I'm going to coach you guys up on your grades or what's happening in the school. So you ask questions like that. If there's something, now they go to the same school or different school? The same school?
Yeah, they go to John I. Leonard High School.
So all of John I wasn't sure that worked out. So let's just say something happened in school and everyone knew about it. You got a great opportunity to say, okay, let me do some coaching and see if they can process and come up with a solution to how they respond to it. So as their mentor, you want to make sure, you know what, I want to keep them emotionally strong. So you can coach a group. You can just ask questions and they'll answer amongst themselves. You put another question on the table until they arrive at a solution, even if it's something indirectly connected to them. So that'd be a great opportunity for you to sharpen your coaching skills as in a group format as well. So the last thing I want to ask is with Brianna, and I know, like you say, you have other kids. How close do you think she is at getting some clarity on her career and where she would be going? I know she wasn't too sure on that. Most kids know that later on. You know, us guys, we don't figure it out till we're 35, but the girls, they get it now. How close do you think she is at having an exhausted like coaching session, maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes of you just asking her questions without giving any counseling or any therapy, just having her answer the questions?
Well, when she first came to my class, she came to me, she said she wanted to be a realtor, okay? And I said, well, real estate is a great field, especially today where the market is exploding.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, how are you gonna plan it? You know, you can't just go to take a class. I mean, you can do the easy way.
Okay.
But if you want to maximize your money, you want to make as much money as possible, how are you going to plan it? So she kind of like dug into it, started looking into more details. And as she has seen, I said, it's not just being real estate. You can be a developer. You can be, just there's different aspects of it. And there's also colleges that give degrees in real estate. So I said, do you just want to be a realtor, or you want to be a money maker? You want to be a developer? You want to be, the next, I don't want to say Donald Trump, but the next Donald Trump, in the real estate market. All right. So she kind of starts planning it, and now she's kind of seeing that she doesn't want to be just a realtor. She wants to be more than that.
Got it. That's awesome. So it sounds like you were able to pull out her personality and where that really fits.
Right.
I did have a client, young lady. She wanted to be, I think, a psychiatrist. I wasn't sure, but the more I got to know her, I said, I think you need to do a session. And after that session, she found out that she was good at public relations and marketing. I think she's going to graduate next year, but sometimes just a few questions, they get that discovery. It's amazing. So anyway, I just want everyone to know I chose Frank because of Brianna's response. And, you're two different nationalities with everything going on in the country. She got so excited. It was just like, oh my gosh, okay, who's this guy? And that's why I made the joke. He sounds like he's Jamaican. I have a lot of Jamaican buddies, and it's like, okay, if you know anything about Jamaican, you're in automatically. And so anyway, I think that was awesome. The way you're coming across, I love the care that you have for the kids. I know you're doing it for the right reasons. I'm sure Frank's not the only one. Unfortunately, we can't get to everyone, but I'm honored I got a chance to do this. Nancy, Kimberly, thank you so much. You guys, thank you so much for giving me your time. I do apologize for that one video. I do not know what happened.
Don't worry.
But I hope you are able to catch some of this information and use it. You can't use all of it, but you can use pieces.
Not a problem. I do have one.
Have a great year.
I do have one last question, though.
I have time for questions. It's up to you
One
guys.
last question, and then one other thing after that. What is the best way to deal with the very reasonable disappointments that kids have due to COVID and all the changes that have happened with in-person extracurricular activities? My child was just about to go sing, meaning her mentee, at Carnegie Hall when the pandemic hit. She has recovered, but there may be future disappointments like this.
Okay.
How do you help build that resiliency?
Love it, love it, love it. So was she going to sing with the group or on her own? Was that an invitation? Was it, do you know?
I'm not
I
sure.
can answer. I can answer.
Yes.
It was my question. Thank you. It was with her chorus group at school.
Okay. All right.
And so the trip got canceled.
Got it. Again, you ask a question. It can sound complicated. It can sound very simple. A lot of times I'll ask a question. If you know she's been disappointed, you want to help her reframe the whole situation. The best way to reframe it is to ask the question, what are you going to do now? Or are you going to ponder on that? Just ask her. Because we all know that she can't keep dwelling on that. So you ask her, what do you think you should do now to either replace that? If you can't get to Carnegie Hall, what's a good idea to kind of simulate that? What would you do? Now, I'm very creative. I like coming with a number of different things, but I promise you, if you ask her that question and let's just say she answers, maybe I should get my friends together. Maybe we should sing on Zoom, or maybe we should create something for the community or whatever. We don't know. But the responsibility is up to the coach to bring that out. And you're going to have to ask her with the question. So you may want to say, I'm not sure of the young lady's name, say, listen, I know that's been bothering you. I want to have a session with you. Let me see if I can coach you up and help you through this. And just let them know, so look, I'm only going to ask you questions. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I want to try this. Let's just work on this, because that's a problem. Right now, she has to discover and clarify how she's going to deal with that problem. Then she's going to hypothesize it. She's going to remember why she has to deal with that problem, okay? She's going to walk it out, obviously, and then she's going to evaluate and adjust and see if that remedied her disappointment.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anything? I forgot. Sorry. Whoop.
That's
My boss.
Mark, I appreciate you. I love you and I miss you.
yes. Likewise, Nancy. Thank you so much for this opportunity. You guys have a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.